This is Radically Alive Women's Edgecast.
Hello.
Hello, Julie.
Hi.
Welcome here, courageous woman in Radically Alive Women Edgecast.
It's a pleasure to be here. A surprise call, right?
Yes, I had no idea who I would be seeing on the other side, and I'm glad to meet you here in this unknown space between us. So this is Radically Alive Women Edgecast. It's honest conversations amongst women. And the purpose is really to inspire, encourage, and empower women to walk their own path, so that each of us gets to unfold her own uniqueness fully and unapologetically, and connected to the root, the radical. And your name is Julie, or
Yes,
what?
yes,
Julie.
yes.
And where are you right now?
Well, I'm in Greece right now on Crete and the south coast, which is, I've been living on Crete for 8 years, but I just moved from the north coast to the south coast. So you're catching me kind of in the middle of settling in and unpacking, and it's actually the first recorded conversation I'm doing in my yard. It's a beautiful old stone house, and there's a beautiful view of the sea.
Wow, amazing.
And it's a transition.
You're in a transition. Well, okay. We're
Yeah.
already in a similar spot. I'm in Auckland right now in New Zealand,
Okay. Yeah.
and about to travel to Germany on Friday. So also transiting. And who I usually ask this question, it works really well. Who are you right now? I don't even need to know maybe what you do, but who are you?
Yeah. So I'm a woman in transition. I moved here to the south coast after my partner of 7 years and me, we separated a few months ago. And I decided I wanted to have a fresh start and come to a part of the island that I'd always loved, really with my heart, where my journey on this island started also. And it meant giving up the beautiful countryside home that we had been renovating, where I even had my own studio to host circles and sessions in person and online. But I really felt it's time to shift into a new place, and that is very much part also of transitioning inwardly. Like, I'm really feeling the perimenopause transition very much. I work a lot with that also as a rite of passage and initiation, and I really feel it myself as there's so much changing within me, and it needs to be reflected also on the outside. However, this whole process of manifesting this, of creating this space, has been super smooth. And then just the last 3 weeks have been incredibly messy. So, like, literally, like having a big scooter accident, which means I can hardly walk. This house is up on a cliff, so I have to walk on village paths. I can't really with my foot. I have to ask almost everything of other people to help me. There in the healing process, all kinds of things went wrong. It's like, even just now, like, I was preparing and somehow I ate something that didn't sit well, so I'm feeling kind of like unsettled. But I felt like, okay, we're just we are on the edge, so let's go with it. Let's show up and see what emerges from here. And I'm really like, I'm receiving all these signals, of course, and I'm not quite sure yet where it's landing. Is the place telling me like, no, this isn't the right one, or is it telling me like, oh, prove to me that you really want to be here? Or I'm not quite sure what is brewing with all this. So it's a really interesting moment that you're catching me on. Yeah.
Wow. It's such a fascinating experience to witness you and listen to you speak. And I can so quickly go into assumptions, or, you say you're holding space for transitions, rites of passage. So I'm guessing you do women's work. Will you say a bit about what you're, maybe again, it's like yes, it's also as a manifestation in what you do. And I'm not so much interested in what do you do, but in what is the expression of that comes through you and that you express in the world that you are excited about.
Yeah. It is. It is a lot to do with the wildness, the sacredness of our nature as women, or anyone identifying as woman. And it is really, through my own experience of perimenopause, it's really rooted in that and all the aspects of the wild woman who I feel very much coming alive in that. I think for the past 5 years, that's really been shifting my calling, or my what I offer into the world, from really focused on all the aspects of cyclical living and the menstrual cycle and the different archetypes. As I shifted really into wild woman myself, I find this really very expansive, so much to explore within that as a rite of passage, and especially the qualities of rawness, of aliveness, of anger, of fury, of rage, of big transformations that come through us both strongly physically, but also very much in the, I mean, psychologically, but really as the soul is going. For me, it's a whole initiation into the wise woman years beyond menopause. And so everything that's not essential to our soul calling on this planet is really just falling away, and it's not always pretty, as goes with rites of passage. And I think you are familiar with that also.
Yes, it might happen also that I get this red face while we speak because I'm in the middle of of the transition myself, and
The inner fight.
I love it.
Yeah.
Yes, I love to be like, I could make this a problem, and I could, and what I choose is instead be curious of this exquisite experience, what my body can do, becoming so sensitive. And I'm curious to hear more about your experience. But what I notice is I'm becoming so sensitive to slight shifts in temperature outside or weather outside, but also inside. So a droplet of fear, a droplet of anger can ignite this whole flare up, hot, sweaty face, and then going down again. But it can also be 0.01 degree change in temperature, and my body goes like, whoa, something changed, it's hot.
Yeah.
Let's regulate it. Let's do something about it. And I'm glad that you're mentioning the wise woman, because I was living with a pregnant friend, like physically pregnant friend, just recently, and she is actually birthing a child, but she also is getting so sensitive that by being around her, I noticed I'm in such a liquid state often that it's like I'm birthing something too, but I'm not birthing a child. I'm birthing a wise woman. And that's a bold claim for me to make, to say I'm birthing a wise woman. But that, I think it's true. There's something to that. And what is your experience? You say for 5 years you have been going through that, or you've noticed it. Is that accurate?
Yeah. Yes. And then, I mean, really the early stages of perimenopause. Now I feel I'm in the middle. And because I have a big part of my journey has been menstrual cycle awareness and really being very much in tune with my bleed and the whole cycle of the different phases of our menstrual cycle. So I could really sense very early on that there were changes happening, like the no longer being 28 days and the bleed itself being shorter, and in my case actually less heavy. Many women get it heavier, but for me it became lighter. And then with that came this whole sense of no longer wanting to put up with a lot of things that before I had put up with. And now I know that that is a lot to do with, at least I experience it like that the estrogen changes so much. And this is the hormone that allows us really, or that incentivizes us to just give and give and be so full of love and care and all that. So when that is no longer present, it's like the rose tinted glasses that we get when we ovulate, they are no longer there. So it's like, okay, I'm less likely to compromise. I'm less likely to put other needs before mine, which of course anyway is a process that we learn. Okay, I'm an adult, I'm looking after my own needs. But I find that in perimenopause, it becomes almost this physical thing of like, oh, I cannot, I don't want to. in partnership, in family relations. And then, yeah, with the progesterone, this kind of, it is a bit of a sedative, right? So when this also changes, then we also don't have that kind of buffer anymore. So everything comes in more direct. Like you say, everything is so sensitive. I actually, not every woman going through perimenopause has hot flashes. So I don't actually, but I do have many other symptoms that even before I didn't know that were connected with it, like issues in the bones or allergies, like hives on the skin, or all things that are really calling out like, hey, okay, so what is it that your body really needs nutritionally? Because then the allergy doesn't happen. Or how do you need to move in alignment so that actually your joints don't hurt so much? So I find it really calling out like this next level of, yeah, really being responsible for your health, and also kind of preparing for the next phase of life, right? The more we do now to really look after our body, the more it pays off also in the decades ahead, so we can really serve as a wise woman. And I find it also, in this journey, I've also found it really important to name that it's actually not only my responsibility. Like, there is also so much environmental influence on my hormones personally. Like, I cannot control, as much as I eat healthily and I live healthily and all that, there's still structural things that are impacting how what my body receives, because I'm part of this society, I'm part of this world. And so that means, toxins environmentally, but also more emotional toxins of patriarchy and, unfair power dynamics and all these things that, yeah, we can take responsibility for our part. And then there's also the other part of being incarnated in this body, in this lifetime, in these times. So I also find it really important to name that for myself and for the women I work with.
How do you do that? How do you handle the environment, or what do you do with that? Because yeah.
Well, I live in this small village on the south coast now by the sea, so it's it's good. And I'm sitting under a mulberry tree that soon will give fruits and all that. So in a way, it's very clean. But for example, this village and most of Crete, and especially in the south coast, is very patriarchal. It's in a way very traditional. So people are close to the land. You still have shepherds roaming with their flocks, and people make their own cheeses and milks and all that. And there's a kind of cruelty also, for example, towards animals, or a disregard to, yeah, to how they treat them, what goes in the products, what comes out of them. Not everyone, of course, but there is this sometimes a little, yeah, sometimes just ignorance, and sometimes it's also because there's so much financial pressure on people here that they feel they have to cut some corners. So I always find it very interesting how there is this, how to say that, we can try to create a as healthy environment as possible, and also accept that we live in this world. I lived actually for a long time before coming here. I lived in Auroville in South India, which is a intentional community in Tamil Nadu, a big spiritual community in the forest, and it's very beautiful. And especially my first years there, in my early 30s, I was very maybe idealistic in a sense of being as pure as possible for everything that went into my body. But after some time, I also started to notice the kind of control element that can come with that. It's a bit like we can eat as healthily as we want, and then it can almost become an eating disorder, right? I think there's even a name for that, orthorexia. And so then it doesn't serve us, because there is this kind of anxiety and control over everything should be pure. So over the years, I'm finding that yes, I'm still really looking after my body and choosing what I want to eat, And I also have a kind of flexibility and understanding that I am in this world right now as it is, and that is as it is.
So if you could change one thing about the world right now, and it would be just click your fingers and it's changed, what would you change?
Matriarchy, from patriarchy to matriarchy, as in,
Yeah.
but not.
What do you mean by that? Yeah.
Yeah, it's always important to name that. It, for me, it doesn't mean women replace men at the top of a pyramid, but it means to me to create a circle of men and women protecting life. That, yeah, so we are no longer operating in hierarchies. We are not operating in a kind of extraction mode for constant profit and growth, depleting our resources of the earth, of ourselves, but instead embrace a more cyclical approach to life, which is ultimately really just nurturing life, the plants, the animals, our children, ourselves. Then I think we have a much better chance also to create an environment that actually supports us. I mean, physically, like what we're just saying, then it would be much easier to have a healthy environment. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Hmm. I want to ask some questions also of you. Is that because, yes,
Like, yes, of course.
because especially because I know that you work a lot with this. I love, this is one of the things that got me very excited about talking with you here, is this idea of the edge and the kind of beyond patriarchy. So I work a lot with that also, and I know that you do too. So I'm very curious what that means for you, and how, matriarchy resonates for you or not, and how you live that. Yeah.
Yeah, great question. Yeah, I notice in me something happens, sort of a resistance to the word matriarchy, because it has been there. Like matriarchy has already existed, and it invokes like an idea. And I hear you speak of something else, but it invokes an idea of going back in time, and I don't want to go back in time. I see we need something else right now, and I'm very much with you. I am part of, like, I want to create a different culture, and I used to do culture out there. I want to change the culture out there, and it needs to change for sure, but I also notice how much the culture out there emerges from the culture that I have in here. So what I want to see is, radical collaboration amongst adult human beings, like really matured, internally adult human beings that hold space for the sacredness of life. And in some contexts that I've been in, they call it archiarchy, like archetypally initiated men and women collaborating. In other contexts, I've heard the word wholearchy, where the wholeness of beings comes together. And I think it warrants us to invent new language so we don't get stuck in old thought patterns. And I do see the necessity to have a culture also where it is like a culture that puts a lot of focus also on centering around women's wisdom, where the feminine has been so undervalued and underrepresented in large parts of the world that it's quite a journey for me also to actually even acknowledge it in myself, to find this edge in myself and not be sort of fogged by the thoughts that float around everywhere, and that can be so easy to just think that's what it is. And I notice I'm waking up to my rage also often, like on occasion, it's not all the time, but my rage of realizing, oh my God, there's another edge where I was asleep. I'm still justifying certain things in front of myself or in front of others. I think that that's just the way it has to be, but it's not true. And I'm discovering the beauty of radically collaborating with women on that edge of, hey, okay, let's not be asleep together. Who are you? What is it that's your fire? It's not my job to change you. It's not my job to pull you anywhere or carry you on my shoulders. And when I see something where I notice, whoa, something happens in me now, still can I bring it so that you can decide what to do with it? And so I'm really excited about the feminine way of moving in the world, and I see there's so much beauty in that, and there's so much beauty in moving alongside the masculine way of moving in the world, where each has its place, and that excites me. So that's and my age is really to identify these patterns in myself and not get lost in transforming myself and become a better person, but actually apply it in everyday interactions with the people around me to show up differently, so that the world can shape also itself differently around me, or it has to, because my shape is different.
Yeah. Yeah, what is coming up for me as I'm listening to you is also this, for me, kind of interesting interplay possibly with where it is that we find ourselves on this planet, on this earth. So this, for me, being on Crete, for example, has been a very deep connection with the earth and with rooting and with earthing. It's a very different energy from when I'm in Auroville in South India. And here on Crete, you have very much the ancient pre-Hellenic Minoan civilization, where there is this actual lived matriarchy that was most likely there. Again, not as women ruling, but the divine feminine at the core of society. In India, it's again a very different expression, and in New Zealand, of course, it's all different again. So,
Can you say something about India? What did you notice in India?
well, so on the one hand, you have this, you have the goddess worship is still so much more alive, because there are still goddesses that are actively worshipped everywhere, the big ones, but also smaller local ones. And so the what I see as kind of pre-patriarchal worship and rituals are still more present than, especially in Europe. I don't know about New Zealand. And at the same time, there is this really intense patriarchal society, and in which the mother is kind of revered, but also women are aggressed so much. So I find when I'm there, I'm always in this kind of dichotomy of, on the one hand, really being able to tune in so much with the abundance and flow and intuition and surrender and the beauty and the flowers and the smells and the kind of ecstatic sense of beauty. And then at the same time, in day-to-day life, there's a kind of a shutting down of the feminine body, let's say, in order not to attract too much attention or not to engage, because there's always kind of this danger, possibly in not in Orville itself, which is a beautiful community, but it's not closed off from the rest of India, nor should it be. But that comes with that, yeah. And that's also one of the reasons why I wanted to spend more time here on Crete, because I could really feel that my body was opening up, and I could wear wear shorts or wear skirts, or just the freedom of expression, not having to hide and cover up certain parts of the body. That was really freeing and really necessary in my journey of I was already working a lot with women's circles and with the somatic expression of the feminine. And I felt that it was really harmful for me to stay longer in an environment where I had to kind of close off parts of my body instead of letting them really open. Um, so yeah, that is much easier here on Crete, with the sea and the beaches and the beauty of summer. And then there's this added element of the past, which is actually really alive in nature somehow. There are many places like where there's a well or a source, a spring, or on the top of a mountain or by a cave or a big tree where there has been worship, most likely to goddess, for thousands of years. Maybe now there's a small chapel, maybe there's nothing anymore, but still there is this, you can sense the sacredness, and you can sense the yeah, this worship that has been there. And this is one of my yeah, most favorite things to do here, to bring women there again and to kind of continue to reestablish the lineage, in a different way, of course, because we cannot go back to the past, nor is it necessary. But the to reconnect with the worship of nature, of refining a way of expressing ourselves through ritual, is very powerful. Not only for women, but it comes very easily to women. And when there is a circle of women, also it is very powerful, as I'm sure you know. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, so thank you for sharing.
Hmm.
I have this experience of New Zealand and Germany also being very different. So my birth
Yeah.
country is Germany.
Yeah.
And I have, especially having traveled between those two countries in the last 2 years, I notice it more distinctly when I arrive in the other one. And noticing how New Zealand was for me also like this really, almost like a virgin, like a very fresh, feminine
Yeah.
place that is still powerful. Like there's a potent feminine force that can be super easily underestimated because there's no dangerous animal living here, but there are volcanoes and there is intense cold on the mountains, and people die in the wild bush because they get lost and or break a leg and are not prepared. And so there's a ferociousness still. There's a danger of that, and it comes at it with a very sweet face, maybe, or like a. And it's and it with the freshness, virginity. I mean, really, this whole onto herselfness, this a pureness. There's a pureness in the clean, clear water and the fresh air. It seldomly gets really like muggy hot. It gets hot in summer, but there's usually still a fresh air tint with a cold southerly wind coming up. And then there is Germany, where it's really this old ancient Earth Mother. So much life has happened in Germany, and so much trauma as well, or so much war has happened there. But underneath is this really old Germanic pulse beating. And I find it so interesting also that, yes, it's not about going back, and at the same time it's also harvesting or resource, like plugging back in with our roots, back into like drawing the wisdom that we may have forgotten, or what we may have been like being, as women especially, been violently cut off from, and to pull that forth. And I think maybe the perimenopause, or the years of change, return into power, is also that awakening of, or remembering of, okay, so how do I connect to this power that I am gifted as a woman, right? We are gifted this power for free. And you mentioned rituals. It's one of our powers, being easily able to connect to that.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Yes, absolutely. Yes, and I feel that in those years around our 40s, 50s, there's often this kind of longing, this awakening happening of a longing of that is this all? This is not all. There is more to it. Like we know somewhere that our soul is craving for more than what our culture provides. And often no meaning, no connection, no frame that supports beauty, that supports celebration, or supports life lived from within. And I feel that in those perimenopausal years there's a kind of sense of like, yeah, I know there's more. And also a sense of that, an anger at the injustices that patriarchy or this society, capitalism, etc., is forcing upon women and others, right? Everyone who doesn't sit at the top of the hierarchy. And so this then awakens this rage and this fury and this anger that is so potent, because for me that's really the return to power, to embrace that, not shun it or not put it away as like, oh, I have to be a nice girl, I cannot be angry, or anger is a low frequency emotion, or all these things are really harmful, I find. When we actually can embody the anger, it is something so powerful, right? It can really bring us into a full yes to life, and also very clear no, like really understanding what serves us, what doesn't serve us. And often it is of course personal, but it's also very much a social thing, because it it is often to do with abuse, which where we have to say no, I don't want that anymore. And then an awakening of like, didn't just happen to me, it happened to so many women, and this is not okay. And so this being able to voice that, especially when we come together and we can support each other in that, then it becomes so powerful and it becomes a force for change, right? Because if we don't get angry and we don't say no and we don't say we don't want this anymore, then nothing is going to change. We just keep enabling the system and the abuse. And of course, especially when men would get on board also, which hope that at least it seems there are some signs of that there are men that are saying like, hey, this is not good enough anymore, and they're speaking up against other men. And I just returned from 2.5 months in Auroville, and a lot of my work was around women's anger there, but also I did one circle for men. It was the first time I did that, because I always felt like it should be a man who does that. But then this time I felt so strongly that I really wanted to create a space for men to touch in with their sense of righteous anger, like the tenderness of their heart, and the courage to speak up when there is abuse, when they feel that maybe a friend or a family member is going too far, that they can call it back, or even when there are certain remarks made, that you can speak up saying like, hey, that's not okay. Because I really feel that if that doesn't happen, then it's very hard to stop it. And because there are so many women now that are awakening to this, there's also this sense of, hey, come on, guys, get with it. Come on, you have to do your part. And so, it is not our responsibility to change that. But yes, it is very much, I feel, part of what the awakening of the feminine is about, actually. To call out injustice, to call out violation of the sacredness of life.
Mm-hmm. And what I hear also to call, you didn't say it this way, but I hear that behind also the work that you're doing with men is call in the men as well.
Yeah.
Hey, come on board.
Yeah.
Be part of the team that takes a stand for life on this planet. Yeah. And it resonates with me of this clarity that women's work is never just for women. Yeah. It's like, it's always also for men. If it's an authentic body of work that is about coming into our authentic selves, then it's always more than just for the women.
Yeah. Yes, and go ahead.
Well, I want to know more about your anger work, because I've been also working with anger a lot. And how did you find how did you find out about that? How did you come across your fire for anger and bringing this into the world?
Yeah, really, perimenopause. Experiencing myself the kind of the sense of clarity and alignment that it brings to really express anger and move beyond it. like the power of the decisions I'm able to make because I've tuned in with my anger. They feel so much more in alignment of what I want to be in the world and how I want to serve, and the world that I would like to see. So and there's just a big power that comes from that. And then I did a very beautiful online container last autumn, which was all about inner fire and the perimenopause transition as a rite of passage. And the practice that really served as a red thread to the initiation was going into sacred rage as an embodiment practice of shaking out, of using a lot the voice, and going into the kind of sacred space of trance, where it starts perhaps with anger or rage, and at the same time it is a doorway into a full aliveness, like kind of a life force energy that we tap into. And anger and passion kind of are two sides of the same coin, and that practice just expands our sense of feeling alive, and it has this power of alchemizing. And so whether we go in with a deep anger, frustration, or with just an abundance, inspiration of life, then it moves through us, it flows through us, and we come out with a very clear sense of clarity, while also being in honoring the space before that. I actually find that very important, the kind of the pause or the liminal space. So through a practice of shaking out, of voicing, especially communally, when we can also create a kind of the field we created together. It's very hard to find words for what actually happens, but
because it is an experience, right? Yes.
Yes. And let's say a trance experience, and then at some point there's a moment where the shaking stops, the voicing stops, and there's a kind of peace and nothingness and emptiness, a liminal moment when we are fully in the present moment, which isn't in the past, it's not in the future, it's really just there where we are. It's often something that we skip over in our society, right? So I find it really important to stay there. It's like our bleed also, this moment in between the end of one phase and before the beginning of a next, like a dark moon moment. And when we spend time there and we learn how to hold that, how not to rush out of it, but really be with the precious medicine that it offers, then we come back out of it with so much clarity and wisdom for how we can show up in situations that have brought us that anger or that fury or the rage. Yeah, within whatever is possible for us. And I find it always important to stress that, we can show up as much as we want to, and then there's also, somehow reality will meet us, but this is not always the case also. Sometimes it's a very deep structural pattern that requires like multiple rounds of change, and sometimes it may not be something that we can change. We also depending a lot on the privilege that we carry in society. That was a lot.
Yes, thank you. So we're coming to an end, and I just want to add that I noticed this anger is also really important for us women to. I notice I need other women's anger by my side. So so that so that we stay awake with each other, that the clarity doesn't get watered down by these mantras that are floating around outside of us and also inside of us sometimes.
Yeah.
Oftentimes.
Yeah, exactly. There's sorry. Yeah.
No, just not just the potential of sisterhood, like an authentic sisterhood, even though we're not blood sisters, but women's solidarity of friendship or whatever you want to call it, but being really radically by each other's side, I think is really a shifter for game changer. Alchemizing as well, this feminine, birthing the feminine into the world again.
Yeah, and anger, like you say, it breaks through the cliches, right? That's really, I find it very powerful that we can break through sometimes the thought patterns that might have helped us at some point, but even within a lot of new age spirituality, there can be so many things that we just take on as like, oh, we should accept. Acceptance is a beautiful thing. Well, yeah, no, not always. It can actually be very harmful. So we can harm ourselves by thinking like, oh, I have to be in constant acceptance. Well, if there's abuse, no, we should not be in acceptance.
And I think that's especially tricky for women, because most women are so used to abuse that even in spiritual contexts, it can be really hard to detect. Yeah. So the acceptance thing can be, just another layer of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Okay, so much to unpack still. Yeah.
Yes, we could. I get the sense I could speak with you much longer, and maybe we'll pick it up that another time. I want to finish, or I have two questions left in me. One is maybe related to the anger, but also anything else where you would recommend a practice, something really practical that women can do to come closer to their feminine power or their anger. What would you recommend? One practice?
Yeah, my favorite practice. So I also, because I work as an embodiment therapist, but it's really just shaking it out, not just. It's actually really powerful. But I say just because it is very simple in a way. So I have a lot of powerful music to support that. And I think you will put my link in the bio.
Yes, I will.
So we'll put my Spotify account there too, because there's so much beautiful wild woman music out there.
I love it.
Yeah, I have a lot of playlists that really support like the shaking out, the coming into the body. And for me, that really gets amplified when we can allow the voice to connect with that. So express also what is coming up, which can really be like animal sounds or groaning or howling or screaming or whispering, whatever it is, but that we allow the expression to come out through the voice, because that it's the body and the voice. And maybe there are words that come sometimes, in the spaces I create in person, it's actually often some co-created chants that happen, not necessarily musical. Sometimes they are, sometimes they end up being screams, sometimes they're howls, sometimes they are voice carpets that happen. But this is really very much part of the medicine. And even when you practice that on your own, I feel the becoming comfortable with your voice from in different ways of expressing itself is really, for me, it was a complete game changer. Yeah. Then we can say no and yes.
Yes, saying no and yes. I'm curious with the shaking out, because I have experimented with not shaking it out, like shaking it, but more, and that comes from a context called feelings practitioners, putting this, like reusing. It's not getting rid of that energy. Like you say, it is a life force. I want to keep that energy.
Yes. And it's, thanks for calling that out, because when I mean shake it out, I don't actually mean shake it out. I mean, for me, it's a way of allowing the parts of our body that are in freeze or in fight or in flight or in fawn mode to open up. So when we bring a kind of an aliveness into the body, then the emotions find a lot more space to express themselves, and then we come into this flow state. Yeah, I come from a kind of an expressive movement background, so for me it's very important to not say like you have to move like this or you have to feel that. I usually create a space where we connect very much with the archetype, and then we just see what comes up. So if that means that you need to take the power within, you do that. but sometimes it's something very different. It depends so much where you are also in your journey, right? Sometimes it's just, oh, like, wait, I can feel my shoulders move, right? Actually, they've been stuck, or my feet are actually grounding with the floor, and that is already so important. And yeah, and so sometimes it is also sometimes it is good to shake it out and release it. Sometimes we hold so much that is not ours to hold, right? But I think once we have cleared out a lot, then yes, it's much more about this sense of, oh, wow, I have all this power and this energy circulating through me. What if I hold that instead of shutting it down or just giving it away? Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. One spaces, the raw, the edge spaces. I'm very happy to connect and to, have this soul sisterhood across the world. It's very, when we're living on the edge, it's so important to have these like-hearted connections.
Imagine that you could become so radically alive that you would create not only the life that you love, but also the culture that comes through you, that your being is designed to create. This is what this Agecast is about. This is what this Agecast aims to inspire in you as you listen to this right now.